OBX Wave Report. I am Robert Scribbler, your host, and today we are going to be talking about some smooth moves for surf safety. Welcome to the Wave Report, where every stream session is an adventure as we explore all things waves, beach lifestyle, weather, and climate. So today we're going to go through some basic rules of thumb that you can use, that I use to, one, stay alert and safe while you're in the ocean, to prevent injury, to manage waves, particularly moderate to powerful breakers, and to paddle through rough surf. But first today, the wave report for the Outer Banks, where we choose 3 locations and describe to you the basic conditions there. Now, of course, I'm not on location in the Outer Banks right now. Right now, I'm actually in Salem, Virginia, visiting my parents. So, like many of you, I've traveled for the Thanksgiving holidays, so I'm presenting to you remote. And we will do our first on-location report either Saturday or Sunday of this week, depending on, it'll probably be Sunday of this week. So depending on how quickly I can get set up down there in the Outer Banks. But for our wave report this morning, we're going to start out at Jeanette's Pier, where wave heights are 1 to 2 feet. The wave period is 9 seconds for the primary swell, no indicator for the secondary swell. The wind direction and speed is 10 miles per hour out of the northwest or an offshore flow. The air temperature is 57 degrees Fahrenheit and the ocean water temperature is 60 degrees Fahrenheit, with ocean water temperatures inching down as we would expect as fall progresses. The weather at Jeanette's Pier is partly cloudy, and the expected high temperature today is 59 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, moving south down the Outer Banks to Avon Pier, we find that the waves are a bit higher, ranging from 2 to 3 feet, so thigh to waist, possibly even getting up into like lower chest range, depending on how tall you are, or getting the outsized waves in the sets. The wave period is 9 seconds for the primary swell and 13 seconds for the secondary swell. Wind is coming out of the northwest at 14 miles per hour, another offshore flow here. And the air temperature is a bit warmer than Jeanette's Pier, about 61 degrees Fahrenheit, with the ocean water temperature at 66 degrees Fahrenheit. Also a bit cooler than our last indication, as we would expect. So make sure to consider your cold weather protection if you do decide to go surfing. Waves are a bit better than they have been, so some people might get out there and brave the cool conditions. The weather here is mostly cloudy at Avon Pier, and the expected high for today at Avon is 63 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, moving further south to Hatteras, we find that the wave heights are about the same as they were at Avon, 2 to 3 feet. So surfable waves, certainly larger than they have been, but nothing to really write home about. The main wave period, primary period, is 9 seconds, secondary period is 5 seconds. The winds are out of the north-northwest at 12 miles per hour with another offshore flow. So winds over the Outer Banks today prevailing out of northwest or north-northwest, running offshore, maybe cutting a little bit of chop into those swells. The air temperature is 61 degrees Fahrenheit and the ocean water temperature is 67 degrees Fahrenheit. Still relatively warm in the ocean, but you probably want some cold weather protection in any case, at least a spring suit if you do decide to go surfing at Hatteras, at the point there near the lighthouse. The weather is cloudy, so not much sun down there right now, and the expected high for the day is 63 degrees Fahrenheit. And so that concludes our wave report section of the OBX Wave Report. If you are looking for more information on waves, I recommend you go to magicseaweed.com, a fantastic website for all things waves and surf forecasts and conditions. Fantastic resource. So for today, for our special, we're going to talk a little bit about wave fundamentals. And I'm going to share with you some basic to intermediate techniques for managing waves while you're in the ocean and to stay safe in ocean conditions in relationship to waves. I'm not going to talk about swimming or riptides. People talk about riptides all the time. I don't know. I might do another episode on riptides, but this is just to manage waves. And it's understandable why waves are, if you're like new to the beach or you're just interested in getting into surfing, waves can be really intimidating. They're powerful. They move. They generate a lot of force, and it's a kind of force that people generally aren't used to dealing with. They can hold you under the water, which can be kind of scary, and they can slam you into various things. So what we're going to do is talk about how to position yourself in relationship to the waves and to remain alert to the waves in a way that will reduce your likelihood of injury in the water. And first, we're going to start out with some basics, and then we're going to move on to some intermediates. And I'm going to demonstrate to you maybe a couple of moves here in this loft area where I am just sitting on this carpet. You're going to have to imagine with me the waves because I don't have any visual aids. I'm just recording directly. But I'll do my best to describe the situation to you in a way that conveys as much knowledge as possible. So for our first wave fundamental, very simple. If you are in the ocean, if you're in the water, and there's ocean conditions that generate waves, never turn your back on the ocean. Always face the waves. Don't turn your back on the waves. If you have your back to the wave, you can't respond to the wave. So very basic first rule, but something that can save you from getting picked up and tossed and getting your head slammed on the beach or something really bad. So always pay attention to the waves. Always keep your face to the waves when you're in the ocean. Don't turn your back on the waves. Waves can pop up and slam you at any time. The second wave fundamental that I'm going to talk about is just to describe the nature of a wave and the force, so you can begin to imagine what a wave is, how it moves, and how you might begin to counter the force of a wave. So fundamental 2 is just a description. So what we're most concerned about is breaking waves here. And a breaking wave motion forms a column of turbulence near the surface. So imagine like a log, like a big thick log of water just rolling. And then imagine like chaos and turbulence that surrounds that. That's the motion of a breaking wave. So it creates this column. It's basically as large as the wave is. It diminishes as it gets closer to shore and as it continues to break. So it can be anywhere from 1 foot to 3 feet to 5 feet to even 6, 8. Even so, a breaking wave motion can cover like a large area, and it's that column of turbulence that you want to avoid if there's a wave coming at you in the water. Okay, so remember that breaking wave is this column of turbulence, and we're going to try to manage that column of turbulence because it does roll like a log. It makes this rolling motion, and we're gonna try to manage it in such a way so that we don't run into the teeth of that turbulence, but we're gonna do our best to use that turbulence to our best advantage to avoid that getting caught in it. And the third fundamental is if you go directly through that turbulence in a moderate size to large breaking wave, you will get thrown about like flotsam. I mean, you're going to get hurled hither and yon, pushed under the water, roll back and forth, go through like a spin dry cycle, like in a dryer or a washing machine. And you can end up in all sorts of bad situations, getting slammed into a sandbar or reef, or getting tossed back into some undertow and held underwater for a long time. So you really want to avoid that rolling column of water. You don't want to push right through it. You want to figure out a way to avoid it. So that's fundamental number three, is the getting into that force. You're going to lose probably. You're not going to win. Nature will send you through a real loop there. So the basic fundamental number four for dealing with wave is, very basically, you want to avoid that rolling column. And the easiest way to do that is just to dive under. And diving, you can just go to the bottom. You can get beneath the surface. But in any case, if you get beneath that rolling column of water, you're going to avoid getting tossed about by the turbulence. And I mean, you can do basic kind of dives. If it's a larger wave, the area of the force is going to be larger. So you want to be, larger the wave gets, the closer to the bottom you want to be. So as you dive, and if there's a big wave, you want to get as close to the bottom as possible. So that's a very basic form that anyone who can swim, who is in the ocean can do. As a wave comes at you, you dive. So as a surfer, though, you have a board. And if you're going through the waves, you want to manage that board in such a way that ideally you use the rolling force of the wave to propel you in the direction that you want to go. And typically, when you're paddling through the waves, you're trying to get out beyond the breakers, out beyond that turbulent zone, so that you can have some peace and safety as you wait for the next wave that's coming in that you want to try to catch. And so over time, surfers have developed this technique called a duck dive. And what a duck dive does is it places you at the bottom of the rolling column of the wave, of the breaking wave, just at the bottom edge. And as the wave breaks and begins to turn back in the rolling force of the wave, you push the board underneath into the lower portion of the roll and have it pull you back with the roll behind the wave into the back of the wave, and it pops you out. So ideally, if you perform the duck dive well, it will propel you forward in the direction that you want to go as you paddle out through the breaking surf. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate to you here basically the basic moves for a duck dive. Now, I know I did put together some exercises for you guys that mimic a duck dive, but we're going to specifically go through the steps of a duck dive. And a duck dive is a more intermediate move. It's something that you want to learn as a surfer, and it is the main tool in your quiver for dealing with breaking waves. So for those of you who don't know how to perform a duck dive, we're going to go through the steps, and I don't know, at some point we might actually go on site in the ocean and demonstrate a duck dive for you. But for here today, we're just going to go through some moves for the duck dive that you can practice on land. So what is a duck dive? A duck dive is when you're paddling on the board. So imagine that I have the board here, and I'm paddling on the surfboard. And so as you're paddling, you're moving through the water, and there's a wave heading towards you. What you do is you place your hands on the rail of the surfboard. I'm going to move up a little bit so you can see my feet. You place one foot on the back of the surfboard, planting it the ball of your toes. So hands on the rail, balls of your toes on the rear of the surfboard, and then you push the surfboard down into the water like a push-up. I'm basically going to do a push-up now, but what you're doing in the water is you are pushing the board down into the water. And as you do this, you want to angle the nose of the board down into the water. So you're
pushing the board down to the board at the ball of your foot planted, and the nose of the board is angled deeper into the water than the rear of the board. The reason why you have your foot on the ball of the foot on the rear of the surfboard is that so you can maneuver the surfboard, and and you can apply different pressure with your arms versus your foot, and that helps you maneuver the surfboard as you push it under the water. Now, this basic maneuver will push the board about 2.5 to 3 feet under the water. And if you do that with the nose angled down, as the wave starts to break over the nose of the board, you pull yourself down under the water and start to angle the nose up as the wave motion rolls over you. And as that happens, if you've performed it correctly, it'll push you through the back of the wave. And that's a basic duck dive. Now, I'm going to also teach you a little tip. This is a more advanced tip for duck dive. But if you have a larger wave and you need to get deeper into the water to avoid the roll of the wave getting caught in the turbulence, there's a secondary step that you can use to push the surfboard deep. And so you're back up in your position. In the water, the board is under the water. Your chest and arms are about the level of the water itself. So you can see the wave coming towards you. Your head's above the water. And you need to go deeper because this wave is pretty large. So what you can do is you pivot from side to side a bit as you corkscrew the board and use the board tilt to pull you deeper under the water, making a corkscrew motion. And then as the wave starts to pass over you, you pull yourself back down to the board and angle the nose up as the turbulence hits you, so you pop out like a cork through the back of the wave. And those are your duck dive fundamentals. Now, duck dive can be a tough move to perform, especially if you're new to it. So something like anything else, you need to practice it, and it requires a great deal of timing. And a lot of things that surfing involves timing. So, but those are your basics for your duck dive. And your duck dive is a intermediate to advanced move for dealing with moderate to large surf. Now, if the waves are really, really big, the duck dive is not going to help you. If you've got huge swells coming in and massive rollers coming towards you, you're not likely to be able to get yourself into a position beneath that column of turbulence that's going to avoid getting hurled and tossed up and caught in that turbulence, which is really going to, it'll take you down the beach. Like I said before, it'll hold you under the water, especially with a really large wave. So we're going to talk about when to ditch your board and dive for the bottom. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to reference a Sublime song. If you see a big blue whale of a wave coming towards you, that's like, way overhead, ditch your board, dive to the bottom and grab the reef, or, get to the sandbar and, hold on for dear life. So yeah, dive deep when it's 10 feet overhead. So, yeah, if you see a huge wave coming towards you and it's breaking, ditch the board and dive for the bottom, because that's the only way you're going to avoid the turbulence. Duck diving, unless you're like some kind of fish and you've managed to figure out how to like swim to the bottom of the ocean with your surfboard doing the duck dive and using that corkscrew motion, you're not going to be able to avoid that raging column of water. And with extraordinarily large waves, the force of the wave will even kind of touch the bottom. So if you dive deep underneath a very large wave and you're hanging out down there waiting for it to pass over, you can still feel the turbulence kind of move you around a bit.
Yeah, it's really quite something else. But all right, so those are your basic to intermediate wave fundamentals. Got a little bit into some advanced sections here, but I wanted to give you guys a good general overview and a good picture of the variance between wave force between like a moderate wave that you can manage with a duck dive and the very large, very violent waves that you just want to swim beneath and avoid. So just as a refresher, going through the basic steps. First off, don't turn your back on the ocean. Second, remember that the breaking wave is this large column of force that's going to control this zone of ocean in which it creates the turbulence. Third, you're going to want to dive under that zone of force. You don't want to tangle with it. It's going to kick your rear end. Fourth, we've gone through the duck dive, and duck dive is your main tool in dealing with waves coming towards you. And number five, if the wave is too large for you to manage with a duck dive, do not be too proud to dive to the bottom and cling and hold on for dear life as the wave passes over you. So there we go. There's some basic wave fundamentals, some smooth moves for surf safety, if you will. And that concludes our wave report for today. Thank you for joining me, and I will be back with you tomorrow. I don't know what we're going to do tomorrow for Thanksgiving, but I got some ideas. So I think I might actually share some Thanksgiving surf stories with you and go deeper into one of my favorite locations on the Outer Banks. So I'll look forward to seeing you then. Once again, thank you for joining me, and